There you go.
All right, Jay, I'll turn it over to you and let me know if you want me to share screen. I assume everybody has the agenda, so if we don't need to share screen, that's fine.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jay Harner. Thank you all for attending today's joint committee meeting on January 27th, 2022. As Misty said, everybody, does everybody have the agenda?
Yes.
All right. Does anybody need it shared? If not, okay. So we will just start with topic 1, the work plan updates. The most, we've been in discussion about the work plan for quite some time. I know that City Hall status of the City Hall is up in the air, but we need to be working on a work plan, not just for City Hall, but for all city buildings. So we need to have contingent plans in case whatever the decision for City Hall will be. If the decision is to stay, then we'll be prepared. And if the decision is to not stay, then we'll be prepared for making sure all access to city buildings follows ADA regulations according to the consent decree.
And John put all those updates in the work plan. That included all the various buildings, I believe.
Yes, this is Misty. We saw that, but as outlined in our feedback, the priorities that Mark Derry included, I think it was 1 through 4, they all have the same deadline and there's no person accountable, which seems a little bit unrealistic. For a priority 1, expanding the walls, possibly, load-bearing walls for the same deadline as changing your knobs to a levered knob, just didn't seem realistic to us.
We're just working down through each of those as we can. So Public Works has started and they're going to continue through.
So we would need, as outlined in our correspondence for the work plan, and I believe you also received our contempt order initiation from the attorneys outlining the need for the work plan to be more specific. That's what we're looking for. The prioritization of each of the projects or updates, who's responsible and when it'll be done. And I think we also, some in there appear to need to be bid out. And so that timeline would have to be included. And we also continue to request being part of that bid process.
Can I ask the question? This is Joe Girardi. You're talking about a work plan for Train Transit 1, Train Transit 2, and RVT, not a work plan for City Hall, if I'm correct. Because presently right now, City Hall is condemned. It does not have any public access or anything. If we intend to go back into that facility, I'm not disagreeing. It has to be 100% code compliant and also 100% ADA compliant. But since we're not using it, I'm assuming what you're talking about is a work plan for 3 facilities that we provide public programs for, or the public goes into those facilities, correct?
So there is a work plan. If you haven't seen it, I would take a look at it. It includes all of those facilities plus the museum. And your understanding is correct.
Right, okay. Yep. Yeah, I'm familiar with the work plan. I just wanted to make sure we're all talking the same here at this point. With the facilities, like you said, and the museum, because that's the police department and they have to have public access also. I understand that. So, all right, thank you.
This is Karen. Yeah, it would be very helpful, as Misty said, when Dairy, Eastlake and Associates provided their feedback that, there was that 1 to 4 priority. So having dates that reflect the priority would be very, very helpful to help us understand. And again, like was mentioned earlier, there's no specific person identified as to who's going to be responsible to assure that that item is completed.
So this is Jay. I did send an email out about a week ago. It kind of outlines a lot of these items we were discussing that really nobody replied to, but we do have an outline with an Appendix A that specifically talks about. I can read from it if you'd like me to. It says, currently all deadlines are set for March 10th, 2022. At present time, this date is not realistic for all items that are listed. These target dates do not align with the priority list. Because of the unrealistic time frame, these dates need to be reevaluated by both priority and reasonable timeline. The work plan should also specify of the work will be completed internally or externally. The work plan needs to specify target and completion dates with the responsible person listed as well. The joint committee must be included in the bid process for actions taken within the work plan. The joint committee must approve designs prior to them being sent to city council committees and participate equally during the bid process. This must be accounted for when setting target deadlines. And that's in an email I sent back on, I believe, the 18th, 19th of January.
I know we've talked about the bid process before, and just to reiterate, that's a set bid process.
Derek, this is Misty. Just to clarify, we did speak about it multiple times before, and last you were going to follow up with the solicitor to see how we could be included in that process under the same confidentiality requirements. And I think Randy had a good point and tried to clarify that we were looking to be involved as well in the design of the bids to assure that the projects were compliant. So just to clarify, we're looking for equal involvement and not anything outside of the bid process that you've established.
Got it.
We have any other comments or discussions about the work plan and the items that we deem deficient and that need to be continued to work on?
That's on our end. We'll continue to work through the work plan, keep you updated.
This is Misty. I just want to make one clarification. We were at the last joint committee, we were really encouraging you, the city and city council, to come to that determination of whether you were going to occupy city hall or not. Just to clarify, we don't really care at this point. That's not necessary. It basically just all falls within this work plan and making sure that we're following that as is. And I see John's head nodding, so hopefully that makes sense.
Say the last part again there, Misty. I'm sorry, I missed the last part of it.
I just wanted to clarify that we were prioritizing the need to make the decision whether you stay or go at City Hall, and that no longer needs to be made, although it is included in the work plan. Like we said, if you're not there, you don't have to make, you don't have to make the upgrade. But in order to move back there, you would have to make the upgrade. So.
Right. Correct. Yes. Correct.
Any other discussion before we move on to topic 2? Hearing none. On to number 2, the ADA coordinator status. We know that Gary Narr is currently training to be ADA certified. I see Gary is on the call, so that's great to see. Thank you for attending, Gary.
You're muted, Gary. I'm sorry. But yeah, it's yep, we're still working through that process of getting Gary certified, and a few other items on our end, personnel items related to that. So working with Gary, working with Janetta, looking at the trainings, and continuing through that process as well.
So part of the email that I sent back on the 18th that discussed, the items I had spoken to earlier, we have a section there talking about Mr. Narr. I'll just read from the email. It says, it says, Mr. Narr to date has not attended any joint committee meetings. Since he is new to learning about the ADA, he will have only earned part of the requirements upon completion of his training by June 1st, 2022. Therefore, it is recommended that the city should extend its contract with the current ADA coordinator until Mr. Narr receives 12 hours of consultation post-certification over the course of 6 months.
So if I'm correct, what you're saying is that by June 1st, I would actually need to get at least 12 credits toward my ADA certification?
This is Misty. I can try to clarify, Jay, if that's okay.
Yep, that's fine.
Go ahead.
So what I hear and what I understand of that is that in addition to your certification, in order to comply with the consent decree with the experience requirement, we're suggesting a 12-hour training over the course of 6 months with the current ADA consultant or coordinator, meaning that you'd have, maybe 2 or 3 hours a month for 6 months training with her, additional, experience working with her in this role of an ADA coordinator, processing any reasonable accommodation requests or any ADA policies, complaint or grievances and that sort of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, my only concern with that is I believe it's probably going to need to be, via Zoom or anything like that. She's in Harrisburg and I'm up here, and there's no way our schedules are going to allow us to spend 2 or 3 hours once a month together as far as that. So I can get with Janetta and work something like that out and try to schedule a plan for the 12 hours.
Yeah, Gary, I think there's no requirement whatsoever to be in person. I think over, meeting remotely over the phone or through Zoom is perfectly acceptable.
Okay. I just would need to document that as through Janetta then. Okay, I'll reach out to her and I'll set something up and we'll go from there.
Sounds great.
Any other discussion topics for number 2? All right.
I have
Oh, sorry about that. Sorry, Gary.
no. I just said I haven't have any questions.
All right, great. All right, then moving on to this, topic number 3, the city employees training deadline. There was a list of 17 employees and 11 employees that did not complete the training that we had provided. And what is the status of their trainings, Derek? Are they, is there a timeline for them to complete the trainings that we have discussed, or?
Yeah, Molly's working with Janetta right now. I believe Janetta is going through modules that would be appropriate for that training, and then we'll get them trained. So yes, we're continuing to work through and rely on Janetta and you all, quite frankly, on what the appropriate modules would be so they can complete those trainings. related to what you all provided and to get everyone trained in the city.
Well, that's vitally important because we are well past the deadline for that training. So I know Molly's on the call, so if Janetta can get that put out there, and we also need to be part of the curriculum to be part of approving that as well. So
Sure. Yes.
and then the hope is to have the curriculum set up for future trainings as well. So as new employees come on, to have that training be set so it just can be redone as needed.
That is correct. So if we have a new employee coming on, it would be part of their onboarding process. That's correct.
All right. Would that be something you'll do quarterly as new employees come on, or is that gonna be like a biannually thing? Or have you thought about that?
The way I think about it is once they start, like as part of their, employment with the city, that training happens, as they start employment. So not quarterly. That's like, if I start in February, I need to do this training as part of my employment with the city. So that would be right at the beginning. Exactly. Yes.
Perfect. Great.
Part of their new hire packet and all of that, part of that would be the training.
That's great to hear. Awesome.
And to be clear, not just ADA, but, other trainings as well.
Sure.
So,
All right. So Molly and Janelle will just keep following up on that curriculum, and as it progresses, we'll be in part of it, and then we'll get everybody trained and just keep everything moving forward from that point.
yes.
Misty, you have any comments? Anybody anything you want to add to that?
I didn't hear. Was there a deadline associated with that?
Just as soon as possibly, as soon as we can, as soon as possible. Like we've talked about before, there were some other, different things we can't discuss why folks missed the training, whether it's maternity or COVID, what have you. But we're going to get them all trained just as soon as we can.
Okay, and so can you provide that update, I guess, at the next joint committee, if not sooner?
As soon as we have an update, I'll get it to you. Yes.
Perfect.
Derek, this is Karen. Will the city, I know, like, I'll use our Center for Independent Living as an example. There are certain trainings that we have, and then we refresh them, every few years. If you have some long-term staff that come in, what is the plan to keep folks abreast to any changes or any updates with ADA training? Thank you.
For working with Janetta on that, Molly's working with her on that as well, so that we have a plan in place. If a new policy comes out, for example, from the ADA that we do get the employees, whether it's a training or whatever the update is. Yes. So again, Janetta's working with Molly to update all of our policies and procedures related to ADA, so that we obviously, as we continue on here, stay up to date. So,
Okay. Thanks, Derek.
Yep.
Any other discussions on topic 3? We'll keep things moving along. All right, hearing nothing, on to topic 4. Nice to see Molly here today. So we received your email about the ADA and the ADAA policy. So the floor is yours. We'd like to discuss a little bit of that so everybody can.
Sure. So I drafted an ADA policy that is appropriate for employment through various resources that I have, human resources, and so drafted that policy, and then utilizing the same format, just took a crack at creating a citywide policy specific to working with the public and individuals who want to do business with the city. I used the communications document that Janetta had forwarded for our completion as a template as far as language. Again, that's not my expertise, so just took a crack at it and would welcome any input or suggestions that any of you have for it.
Molly, this is Misty. I just have one suggestion.
Sure.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So I see you have terms used in the policy, and I don't know if you have definitions or anything related to the actual acts, but regarded as a person with a disability is something new with the ADA Amendments Act. And so I would encourage you to look over that clause and see if there was anything that you thought was necessary in putting in here.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yep. Other than that, I think this is very well written, and I have no other suggestions or feedback.
Do you, no suggestions for the citywide one? Was that one sufficient?
Let me pull that one up. I was looking at the personnel policy.
Okay, thank you.
So this is Misty again. I just see a couple X's and question marks, so it looks like this is just a draft.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that said, we'll review it. I would suggest that members of the joint committee review it, and then we put it on the table for a vote for the next meeting so that we can share with you any feedback or answer the questions that are in here.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, Molly, this is Karen. Like you said, I understand you preface this with this is still a work in progress, so I do get that. I'm just looking at for the City of Williamsport, the Office of Human Resources. At the very bottom, the last bulleted item, it says that ensure that the employees and officials who know how to respond to telephone calls made through video relay services and telecommunication relay services, so that all calls are responded to in the same manner. I guess how will the staff know that? I mean, what is that something that you and Janetta are still working on? Exactly what resource folks will access to learn this information?
That I don't think that is. I don't know if the mayor and Mr. Nar are working on that.
Yeah, that's actually, I've spoken to Janetta about that, Karen. So yes, we are working through that and working with our IT department as well. So Janetta is reviewing, other municipalities, how they handle the calls and things of that nature, and then so that we can get that out to our employees, particularly primarily answer the phone, so they know how to handle that. So yes, Karen, we are working through that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And this is Misty again, just to go along with that. So I would encourage, if you don't already, to make sure that you have a video phone and a TTY phone at each of the buildings that you're occupying. And I say both because TTY is able to be used without having electricity. But quite frankly, not many people use TTY anymore. Video phones are much more prevalent, so that's why I say both.
Yeah, that's good information. Thank you.
Yeah,
I guess
Misty,
the question I have real quick. Sorry, Karen, go ahead.
oh, no, I was just going to say, I think the TTY is still functional without electricity because that actually accesses the old school landlines. I think that's what makes the difference there. But yeah, it's a good, like you said, to have both available. Thank you. I'm sorry, Derek.
That's what I was going to say. Is it landline? Okay, that was mine. So you answered my question.
All right, so this will be something we bring up at the next joint committee meeting, and we'll discuss that then as well. So,
And in the meantime, sorry, Jay, in the meantime, we'll get back our feedback to Molly just so that she has it and can update this so we're ready to vote on it. If everyone's okay with that.
Yep.
Thanks.
yeah, you took the words out of my mouth.
I would just like to say, we're very, very appreciative of the fact that you guys have finally resolved the live streaming and the use of Otter. So thank you very much. And thank you, Chris, for your work there with that.
Well said, Karen. Thank you.
You're welcome. It was a bit of a headache.
All right. That brings us to the end of the agenda. If there's anything else that anybody wants to chime in on, if not, the next meeting is scheduled for February 7th at 1:15 p.m. Monday.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Does anybody foresee any reason that we would need to reschedule that? We seem to be kind of missing some steps here and there with everybody being able to come to the table. Does that still look good for everybody?
Yeah, it's still good for me. Like I said, it's really on a day-to-day basis, depending on what comes up. As of right now, yes, that looks fine. Pending, nothing pops up in my schedule at that point. So, but yeah, thank you for rescheduling today. On Monday, I needed an unavoidable conflict that popped up. So thank you.
And this is Misty, real quick before we break. Derek, do you have an update from Adam and or Randy as to who from the city council will be on the joint committee?
According to Councilman Yoder, it's going to be Randy.
Okay. And Randy just couldn't make it today?
I did not speak with either one of them today, so I'm not sure on that.
Okay. I think I saw him in the invite, I hope.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
sent it to
Yeah, he
him.
was in the invite.
I sent it to him.
And I
Okay.
sent both of them. They both have the agenda as well.
Oh, good. I figured today. Thanks. All right, that's all I
I'll keep them on the agenda as well moving forward. So
Yes, and if you could keep both of them on, just since Councilman Yoder is now council president, just to keep him abreast. Yeah, please. Thank you.
And Gary, we'd love to see you at our next meeting as well, sir. You're a big role in this.
And when is the meeting?
We
You're
meet
talking
every
to
other, it's
February.
typically every other Monday. The next one, Gary, will be the 7th.